Saskatchewan's Finance Minister Donna Harpower delivering the 2022-23 budget at the Saskatchewan Legislature this afternoon. The theme of the government's budget is back on track. Tonight we'll have all the details on how the government plans to spend your money and what it means for you. And of course, all the analysis.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, March 23rd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. It is Budget Day in Saskatchewan, a day where the provincial government lays out its spending plans for the next year and its roadmap for how it will achieve that. We have a lot to cover, and starting us off, our provincial affairs reporter Adam Hunter, who joins us now from the Saskatchewan Legislature. Adam, what are the big takeaways?
Well, Sam, the finance minister sounded more optimistic about the province's economic future today than she has in the last couple of years. The province is predicting higher prices for potash and oil, which will drive up revenue and cut into the deficit.
Saskatchewan is back on track, and our economy is back on track.
Finance Minister Donna Harpower delivered the phrase over and over today. With some relief after a couple of tough years with a pandemic and lower revenues, Harpower says budget discussions went well because of the province's economic rebound.
The surprise was how quickly our economy was recovering. And so it was actually a positive experience because revenues are strengthening that we didn't anticipate, obviously, a year ago.
Last year, Harpower was predicting a $2.6 billion deficit. Now the government is forecasting a $463 million deficit this year, paying that down to $165 million in 25-26 and balancing the books a year later. The government spending is focused in healthcare with a push to cut surgical wait times and to hire more doctors and nurses. And while the oil and potash industry will boost revenues, people will also pay more at sporting and entertainment events. The government is adding PST effective October 1st to sporting events, concerts, movie theaters, museums, gym and golf memberships, and admission to historical sites.
Certainly, we did this with some hesitation, but we also are using then those dollars to fund our surgical initiative, our increase in funding to decrease that surgical wait list.
The government is also bumping up the education property mill rate.
We saw an increase of 2.6% in education property tax, but only an increase of 1.3% in education. So they're bringing in more, but actually investing less. I know we're going to be hearing from divisions in the weeks ahead that they're going to be having to let teachers go and shut down programs.
And Sam, the opposition saying that the government didn't do enough today to address the rising cost of living. I'm joined now by Finance Minister Donna Harpower. Minister, thanks for joining us. I wanted to start with you talking about things being back on track. What are you watching that could take things off track? We're talking about the situation in Ukraine, other things that you'll be watching for that could push things off track.
For sure. So we're very concerned about what's happening globally with what is happening in Ukraine, but we also have a very disrupted supply chain, which is going to affect the cost of goods and services and construction going forward. We always worry about weather in Saskatchewan, of course, and we're going to be very mindful of what we need to do for labor. We have now had an unprecedented $13.6 billion committed in investment, private sector investment of construction and development here in our province. That's going to be very, very positive going forward. It's going to help the province. It's going to create great jobs, but we're going to need that labor pool, so we need to get working on that.
One of the criticisms I heard today was from the Teachers Federation, the School Boards Association, and the opposition on the education spending, that it isn't seeing the same kind of increases that you saw in social services and healthcare. What can you say about that? And should there be concerns that there may be cuts to classrooms?
The increases that we've put to education has outpassed to the increase in the number of students, but we are going to see more teachers, I'm sure, and of course we have the additional $7 million that is to help with education assistance, hiring 200 more education assistants, which is going to help those classrooms that are, having challenges either on size or just the diversity within the classroom. So it's $7 million of a fund that was never there before, over and above what we have given to the school divisions.
Minister, I know you're really busy today. We appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us. Sam, that's Minister Donna Harpower. She was a busy lady today, dropping the budget for 2022-2023. I'll be back in a bit with more from the legislature.
All right, thanks, Adam. Let's dig a little deeper into a few areas of spending. The budget dedicates $6.8 billion to health spending. That's up about $288 million or 4.4%. $21.6 million of that will go to cutting the surgical wait list. $12.5 million to fund 11 additional ICU beds. That's part of a 3-year plan to add 31 intensive care beds. And $95 million is on the books to fund the ongoing pandemic response. As for the education budget, it's $3.8 billion. That's up $47.2 million, an increase of 1.3%. Much of that additional money will go to cover teachers' 2% salary increase. And the social services budget is $1.6 billion. That's up about 4%. People on Saskatchewan income support will receive about $30 more a month. The modest increases were met by some criticism.
A little bit of improvement that we've seen in terms of the base rates today are not even making up for the most recent cost of living increases, let alone catching up for how far they've been falling behind over the years.
Our budget falls far short of our cost drivers, and that's going to end up in school divisions having to make some difficult decisions once again. We see this year over year where boards have to have those tough debates at their table, and at some point we're hoping that we will see a predictable, sustainable, and sufficient funding for education so boards can actually invest in our students rather than continuing to slide backward because we're just struggling to try to find ways to pay for inflation.
We now take you back to the Saskatchewan legislature where Adam Hunter is standing by with the opposition's finance critic Trent Weatherspoon. Adam?
Thanks, Sam. I'm here, as you mentioned, with the finance critic. Trent, thanks for joining us. You've been talking for a few days now about the cost of living increases, gas prices, inflation. What did you see in the budget today that may be able to address some of that?
Well, frankly, Adam, we didn't see anything. This was a no-help budget at a time where Saskatchewan families are facing crushing cost of living increases, $1.70 a litre at the pumps for fuel. We see not a stitch of relief in this budget for Saskatchewan families, and in fact, we see them going in the opposite direction, actually piling on new taxes and fee increases, 32 new taxes and fee increases on everything, if you can imagine, from concerts to gym memberships to rider games and rodeos and agribition. It defies common sense at a time where people so desperately need and deserve some relief.
In the social services budget, I know your party and the caucus has been outspoken on the needs for supports there. What did you see in there? Maybe what is missing in your mind?
Again, we see a government just failing to recognize the damage they've caused with their SIS program and the homelessness and the hurt that they've caused, the crisis that they've created, and the desperate situations that they're leaving folks. And we see nothing on that front, really nothing as well with mental health and addictions within this province, and nothing in our kids' classrooms at a time where they've paid such a hard price and had so many impacts to their learning through
Trent, thanks for your time tonight. That's the NDP finance critic, Trent Weatherspoon, joining us from the legislature. Back to you, Sam.
Thanks, Adam. Political affairs reporter Adam Hunter tonight from the legislature. Some people who will make decisions based on this budget were happy with what they heard. They say it's a sign the government is investing in technology, innovation, and hospitality.
I got to tell you that digital media grant increase will be huge to utilize the soundstage here in our city for tourism and hotels and restaurants, and to really start getting that industry back in town will be fantastic. I realize it's for the whole province, but we do have the soundstage here, and to utilize that asset will be fantastic.
And in the budget for us is $4 million for design and planning of a new Saskatoon campus in Saskatoon. So with that money, to me, there's a signal that the government has confidence in Sask Polytech and our students, our graduates. And what that'll mean for us is we'll be able to bring our 11 locations in the city into one site and create an innovation corridor for the whole province.
Still to come, there are a lot of dollars and cents to wrap your head around on Budget Day. But how will this affect your pocketbook? And what does this mean for the politicians making the decisions and the ones holding the government to account? Coming up a little later on in the show, we'll talk politics and the economy with two experts. But first, your full weather forecast. Stay with us.